Just do a quick sound test. Alrighty. Okay. Give it 30 seconds, then we'll get started. Hopefully the sound is all good. Let me know if you do have any issues viewing the screen or with any audio. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So you would have received my email. Thank you for registering for this webinar. This is really all about growing your business using Google SEO. My goal with this is really just to go really fast, but give you as much information as possible, taking from my experience in the industry and sort of trying to transfer that to you so you can learn as much as possible and ultimately go and implement it for your business and see real growth from it. I guess one of the first key things you want to know is, who am I? Why do I have any sort of, why am I even allowed to present to you today? And really, my experience in digital marketing has sort of grown over the past 10 years. Despite my age, I've sort of had quite a bit of experience in the industry. Personally, I'm a qualified lawyer and business analyst, but my real passion lies with digital marketing. I've grown businesses from literally nothing to multi-million dollars in sales solely through SEO. Hundreds of websites I've worked on, certified with Google, Law Institute member, and youth chair at the Mental Health Foundation of Australia, which is quite timely because it is actually Mental Health Month. So that's my background, but really enough about me. This isn't really about me. What I want to transfer today is some of my knowledge and distill the years that I've taken in learning SEO and try and put that as simply as possible so you can benefit from it. So really, here's the most common question I get. Is SEO still important? And absolutely it is. But first, what actually is SEO? Many of you have probably been pitched 10 times a day from SEO experts that they can get you on page one within a week. But what really is SEO? It stands for search engine optimization. And really, it's the process of improving your rank on Google's search engine results page. So an example, you might type in whatever search term you're looking for. If you're looking for a plumber in Melbourne, right? You're typing in plumbing Melbourne and you get a list of results. Now, those are broken up into three key areas. For local results, 3 key areas. For other types of national results, generally 2. So those 3 areas are organic, maps, and ads. So at the top of the page, when you search for plumber Melbourne, you're going to get ads. Those are Google Ads positions. Then you get the map pack. So it's a Google map that shows where the top businesses are located, usually on a proximity basis. And then finally you have the organic. And organic are the free listings that you can show up simply by having your website well optimized. And that's really what all this is about. Now, another question I get is, well, if organic's down below, should I even be focusing on it? Should I be just paying for ads and trying to get into the map pack? And yes, ads are really great, but they do have some downsides. By optimizing your website correctly, you can be showing up in the map pack, but also in the organic listings. And there's a few key benefits to that. More than 70% of the clicks, so if you have an example of 1,000 people searching for Plumber Melbourne every single month, 70% of those searches are going to click on the organic listings, not the ads, not the map pack, but the actual organic listings, which generally show up below the ads and below the map. There are a number of reasons for this. It's obviously human psychology, and it often is quite difficult to say, but over the years, that has become sort of more and more prevalent, where simply people are jumping to the organic listings. One of those reasons is ad blindness. People are used to seeing ads on a daily basis, so sometimes the brain can just switch off and jump directly to the organic listings. And there's also a bit of psychology behind not wanting to click ads, generally because the services that are being advertised through paid positions are perceived to be more expensive. Take that how you will. Ads is a completely separate topic and can be extremely profitable if set up correctly, but this is all about ranking in the organic listings. Really, the benefit to the organic listings is the effort you put in today will benefit you into the long run. It's basically compounding effort and compounding growth. So you're not just paying for some ads straight away, and as soon as you turn off the ads, you stop getting clients. With SEO, you're putting effort in. There is a bit of a delay between the effort time and when you get a reward from it, but that reward keeps coming. You know, effort that you put in today will pay off within, say, 2 months, but also in 2 years' time, you'll still get clients from those rankings that you've achieved. So the other great thing with Google in particular is there is a serious amount of volume. One sort of trick to note is, you know, everyone focuses on Google. If your target customers tend to be in the professional services or more corporate space, many corporate computers come pre-installed with Windows and come pre-installed with Microsoft Edge, and their default search engine is Bing. So Google is super important, but don't disregard Bing. All the tactics that I show you here will apply for Google and Bing, but it's definitely important to realize that Bing can be actually quite a good revenue earner if you're targeting it correctly. So with this presentation, I'm going to run you through sort of my 3 key pillars for ranking a website, but also I want to make it quite fast. I'm going to go fast. Apologies if you miss anything. I'll have the slides available and you can ask me any questions at any time. But really the one thing I want to drive home with regards to SEO, it is worth putting some effort into it. And this is why. There is a lot of search volume, probably more than you think there is, right? So at the end of the day, SEO, it comes down to the maths behind it. You have the number of people that are searching for services like yours on a monthly basis, and then how well you can get in front of them, right? That's really the basis of advertising. And that's where SEO comes in clutch, where you can really increase the amount of eyes that are coming onto your business, and that ultimately increases the amount of customers that are contacting you for your services. So at the end of the day, it is all about maths. I've got an example here. 1,000 searches per month, which is low for most industries. We're talking sort of 10,000 plus searches when you add together all the major keywords for your service, but also where you're located in your service area. 1,000 searches per month at a 30% click through. So 30% of the searches click through to your website, which is pretty standard, if not conservative, if you're ranking in the top 3. That is 300 visitors per month to your website. If 1 in 4 of those contact you, that's 75 new calls or leads per month. So obviously you can see the benefit here, and depending on your business, you can just sort of put a number to, you know, how much extra revenue 75 extra calls per month would make and what type of difference that would make to your business. So hopefully that puts some context around what we want to achieve here and why a bit of effort into the SEO is really quite powerful. So it's pretty obvious that there's clients to be had on Google, but at the end of the day, we need to know how to get in front of them and how to actually attract their attention to get them to contact you for your services. Now, Google has 300 or more ranking factors, things they take into consideration when trying to decide which website to show above another. ultimately it's just a competition. Google wants to provide the best result for the searcher, and we need to make sure that our website is better in Google's eyes compared to all the others. And that naturally translates to higher rankings and ultimately more customers coming through. So I've taken those 300 plus ranking factors and really distilled them into 3 key pillars. And these pillars are things you can take and sort of implement straight away. And that's really the core of what I'm trying to get at, is things that you can go ahead and implement either by yourself or by hiring someone, and see tangible results from it as soon as possible. So really it's a matter of doing these 3 things well. And once you have that solid basis, you can get into more complex sort of strategies and tactics. But these are the 3 things you need to get right to make sure you're getting new clients on a consistent basis through Google. Now, as I said, 300 ranking factors, there is a lot more involved. But again, implementing these 3 pillars is really a solid basis and will put you ahead of your competitors. Most people aren't going to this level of sort of detail and even putting any effort into it. And the ones that are really are seeing great results from it. So, pillar number 1, your website and your Google My Business profile. I'll break this down. Number 1, with your website, we need to make it as good as possible in Google's eyes, but also needs to be useful to your visitors. Really, the best way I found to implement this is to improve your website structure. Your structure does a number of things, but it's really a bit of a shortcut to make sure that your website's well optimized for Google and Bing. And the best way to set up your structure is what we call content silos. So you see this diagram here, we've got the website as a whole. And then for this one, we have 3 key silos. So it's basically the website's broken down into 3 key areas, usually key services. If you provide one key service, you can break that down even further. And basically this provides contextual relevance. So essentially, it shows Google very clearly what you do, what you provide, and who you provide it to. So the best way to achieve this is to write down your key services. It might be 1, it might be 5, it might be 10. Write them down and then write down the key parts of each service. What questions do customers ask you when they contact you for the first time? What information do they want to know? What do they find useful, right? Write all this down. And then those key services should have their own separate page. And it can be as simple as creating a page for each one and then putting them under a services tab on your navigation. But you need to sort of quite logically structure your website into your key services and separate those parts. The next part is interlinking them, right? So if you have service 1, but it somehow relates to service 2, make sure that there's a link from service 1's page to service 2's page and then service 3's page, and vice versa. Without getting too complicated, just make sure there's links between so Google can jump between the services without getting them too mixed up. So they need to be separate, but also interlinked. Again, that's the diagram, something to base your website structure off. And really the crux of this is your website is not a brochure, right? Firstly, it shouldn't all be about you. It needs to be about the services you provide to your customer, broken down logically and providing useful information. But it also needs to be a resource, right? And really the silo structure that I've mentioned here helps you achieve that. By having those clearly defined areas for your key services with supporting content in sub pages to those, it quite clearly breaks down services, what they need to know, useful information, and then ultimately how they can contact you, which is something I'll touch on soon. Jumping through fast here, I know, but the next part is your Google My Business listing. Many of you would already have this. Google sends a postcard to your business address. You enter the code to verify it, and then you're suddenly showing up on Google Maps. If you don't have one, create one and verify it. You can go to google.com/international ENAU/business, that link there, to register your Google My Business profile. Optimize it. So fill out all the fields, every single one, fill it out, whether it's just saying not applicable or providing information about your service hours, photos, contact information, address, all that sort of thing. Fill it out completely. Regularly make new posts and upload photos to your listing, and then generate as many reviews as possible. Often the best way to do this is once you've serviced the customer, find a way to automatically send them an email or text message saying, hey, thanks for your business. We really appreciate your feedback It helps us improve our services and also helps us reach new customers. And building up those reviews on your Google My Business listing will probably be one of the single best things you do. So you've got your website structure set, you've got decent content on it, you've got a Google My Business listing. Next, we need to optimize for conversions. Conversions are really what grow your client base. You can be getting 100,000 visitors to your website per month, but if they're not converting to customers, it means nothing, right? So a website with useful, detailed content will get you the visitors. Now it's the website's job to convert those visitors to clients. The first step of SEO is really getting the people to your website, right? Now we need to make sure the website is making it easy for them to contact you. So conversion rate optimization, or CRO, it's another acronym. It's a bit of an art, it's a bit of a science, but it can be broken down into a couple of key factors that you can implement straight away. And we sort of have checklists that we go and do for clients, but there's sort of 4 key things that sort of you need to work on straight away to make sure that you're not missing out on potential customers. The first one is making sure you have a clickable button with your phone number at the top right of your website. Make it big, right? If you don't have a phone number, make sure it's a call to action like book a consultation or contact us. But it needs to be clear, clickable button. If you do have a phone number, ideally make it your phone number where they can click it and automatically dial your number. Top right, big as possible. Second, have a contact form or a quote page or some sort of form they can fill out with their details above the fold on every single page. So on your home page, it needs to be up the top. And what we mean by above the fold is when they load the website up, does it appear on their screen without having to scroll, right? Bottom of the screen would be what we call the fold of the page. It needs to be above that. That would be on the mobile, desktop, and tablet devices. And have that on every page. On your internal pages, usually it's going to be in your sidebar, where it might be a little quote request form. Make sure it's visible on every page. Third, again, going quick, website speed. Make sure it loads quickly. Your website, it's actually really important. If your website's loading slower than 2 seconds, it increases your drop-off rate exponentially beyond that, I think on a per second basis. Ideally, your website needs to load well before 2 seconds, and people are just simply impatient. If your website's taking too long to load, they'll click the back button and that's it. You've lost them. There's a number of ways you can do this. First thing, it really comes down to having a good hosting, implementing a content delivery network, minifying, so making the images file size smaller, and reducing the number of plugins and tools you're using. If you're not familiar with the technical aspects, you can just go on, say, Upwork or freelancer.com and hire someone to improve these things for you. Again, it's one of the checklists that we work through with clients, but this is something you should just go find someone online if you can't do it yourself to implement the website speed optimizations for you. And finally, and perhaps the most important one, is making sure your website shows up perfectly on all types of devices, mobile, tablet, and desktop. Doesn't matter what size the device is, your website needs to show up perfectly. It doesn't need to show up the same, but it needs to show up perfectly, right? So it might not have the same layout on every device, but it's very easy to read the content, click the buttons, and see the images no matter what device the user is on. So, pillar number 3, build your authority. This is the part that many people don't understand. It's the number one thing that will move the needle in terms of ranking you higher on Google. And it's actually one of the hardest to implement. That doesn't mean it needs to be sort of difficult for you. You just need to know what to do. Authority, again, it's also a difficult concept to understand when you're new to SEO. But authority is really trust, and specifically in this case, trust from Google. Google is not going to rank your website highly if it doesn't trust you. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. But ultimately, you could have 10 websites. There's 10 organic positions on Google's search engine results page. If you have 10 identical websites from different businesses, they're all got great content, they've got a silo structure, they've got a Google My Business listing, they've got good reviews, they've got well-optimized pages, both for SEO and conversion rates. How does Google know which one it needs to rank better? Right, all the websites are identical. How do we know which one is better and which one's going to provide sort of better usefulness to the searcher. Google does this through backlinks. A backlink is essentially a link from someone else's website to yours. It's a vote of confidence, essentially. And what this does is Google keeps track of all these links in the background. It keeps track of the quantity of the links, but most importantly, it keeps track of the quality. So a website from, for example, The Age newspaper will be more useful than an article from a small website from Russia, right? It assigns different weighting to different rankings. So if you have a link from your local chamber of commerce, your local business directories for your service area or your city, industry websites are linking back to you, those are really great votes of confidence for your website, and Google notices that. And that's really one of the primary things Google uses to understand and rank websites on the results page. It does this on sort of like an instant basis. It identifies what ranking what authority you have, and then ranks you accordingly compared to all your competitors, right? So really what you need to be doing here is seeing what your competitors are doing and doing it slightly better. It's really that simple. Now, in terms of website authority, as I mentioned, it increases your rankings. Ultimately, that increases the amount of visitors you're getting to your website, and that needs to translate to new clients. So that's all well and good, but how do you actually get this authority or these backlinks, right? And these are the two authority must-haves. Number one, citations. A citation is where your NAP or name, address, and phone number are mentioned. So it's your business name in full, the address, and the phone number, right? Even if you provide services at customers' locations, if you can have a business address, very useful. And this needs to be sort of plastered across the website to make sure people can find you easily. But most importantly, it's brand mentions that Google realizes that you exist, that you're online, and you're wanting to be found, right? So the number one place you can put your citations or your NAP listings is on business directories. Now, we've got a massive list of directories. If you want me to send it across to you, just email me there at martin@growthtitans.com.au. I'll send you our list that we use. I think it's about 40 that we recommend and implement for clients within the first month or so. But go ahead and register on all of them and list your business on them. If you can find directories that are in your service area, in your industry, or in your greater city area or state area, those are the best because they provide both industry relevance, but also location relevance, which will increase the chance that you show up when someone's searching from within your service area. Number two thing to mention about the NAP, the name, address, name, address, phone number, and citations, is they need to be consistent. So to the letter and to the dot. So JP Morgan Chase with dots after the J and the P, for example, those need to be there on every single listing and make sure that they're consistent. Otherwise, Google can get confused as to whether you're referring to the same company on each. So make sure that your name, your address, and your phone number are written in the same format across all the directory listings. Second piece of the puzzle, and this is the number one thing that if you can take away from today, apart from perhaps silo content structure for your website, but links is the number one thing that will move the needle. I say this to prospective clients and clients all the time when we have rank tracking where we can physically see where they're showing up for different keyword searches. I'll let them know when we built a new quality link, and 2 to 3 weeks, often 14 days like clockwork, the rankings shoot up, right? It's really that directly correlated to your rankings. So a decent amount of high quality links will set you apart from your competitors. Now, there's a number of ways to do this. You need to be quite careful in the way you do it and not fall for traps. When you get pitched SEO and they tell you that they're going to rank you within the first week, 30% will actually be able to do it. The other 70% is probably a scam, but the 30% that actually can do it, they do it through spam linking, right? So they'll send 10,000 links to your website in 24-hour period. Google will pick that up and say, hey, this website's got buzz. Let's rank them highly. What you'll find is within a month or two, you'll drop off completely and you may not even show up on Google at all. You get essentially banned. So with links, you need to focus on quality and then a bit on quantity. So you can't just live off one high quality link. You need to be getting multiple of them, right? Directories where you're putting your citations is a great start. It's sort of the baseline minimum, but for most industries nowadays, you need to do a little bit more. There's two ways to do this. Number one is a press release, where basically it's a press release that's getting sent out to news websites, not only the major ones, but there's thousands of smaller ones, even within Australia, where you can get content published. But that aside, the number one way, is through guest posts. Guest posts are essentially a piece of content that you've written, posted on another website, usually an authoritative website, that includes 1 or 2 backlinks to yours. Single best way to get high quality backlinks. Really, the best ones to get are industry specific or location specific. So if you've got a cleaning business in Brisbane, as an example, cleaning industry specific websites, even better if they're based in Brisbane, they'll be the best quality backlinks for you. We've got tools that we use to find those types of websites that we can reach out to. But often using your industry knowledge, you can find these websites for yourself as well. Really, the process is reaching out with an email, asking for content to be published, providing them with an article, and they publish it for you. There's a bit of nuance on how to do it. And often that's why people do hire an agency to handle it all for them. But really, it's as simple as reaching out and trying to get backlinks. You can do it with family and friends or industry partners, right? The only thing to be wary of is Google realizes when there's an exchange. So if you go to your friend and say, hey, can you link to my website? I'll link to yours. Google realizes that, sees the interchange of backlinks, and cancels them out. So it can be a bit of a waste of time if you're trying to do that. So guest posts, it is the number one thing that will move the needle, but it can be quite difficult to achieve if you don't know what you're doing. My recommendation, if you're new to this, is to get the first 2 things set up and ready. Make sure your website and Google My Business listing are completely optimized, and also optimized for conversion. Register yourself in as many industry or location specific directories as you can. Make sure your name, address, and profile are listed, and then look at ways you can start acquiring links. Again, depending on the industry, you may not need that many. But again, it really depends on the competitiveness of your environment and where you're servicing customers. So that's really the baseline view of authority. That could be a 4-hour segment in itself, but I've tried to sort of break it down so you have an understanding of how all this works, how the on-page optimization of your website works, what links are, what citations are, and why your Google My Business profile is so important. So, action items and things you can sort of go away now and do. Number 1, website and Google My Business. Make sure you're restructuring it to have that silo structure where your key services are segmented in a logical way, and ultimately not just being a brochure and saying, hey, this is who we are, but showing how you can solve your customers' problems. Ultimately, when they're searching for your services, they have a problem that needs to be solved, and your website needs to provide valuable information answering their most important questions. So they say, hey, these guys are really great. I want them to provide the service that I'm looking for, not someone else, right? If you don't have your Google My Business listing, go ahead and register that and verify it. They'll send you the postcard and just put in the code online. If you need help with that, just let me know. I'll send you a little tutorial that I've written for that. Next, go to your website and implement conversion rate optimization. So number top right, clickable button, contact form above the fold. So on the screen when they load your website, improve your page speed, hire someone to do it, or if you have the technical know-how, do it yourself, and make sure it shows up perfectly on mobile devices as well as desktop. More than 50% of searches online are on mobile devices. So you need to make sure that your website shows up perfectly on your mobile, whether it's portrait, landscape, iPhone mini, Samsung S10 Plus, whatever size, iPad, whatever it might be, it needs to show up perfectly. The buttons need to work. The images need to show up nicely sized, and the text needs to be readable, right? So test that. Really important. Ultimately, one of the biggest things I find is someone has a really great website. They just had a new website done, but you look at it on a mobile device and it doesn't show up properly at all. And that really does mean more than 50% of the people that are searching it, visiting your website, can't use it properly. And that's massive. That's a massive loss. And finally, pillar 3 is authority. As I mentioned, relevant directory listings are going to be the best baseline for you, and you'll actually see improvements just based off that. And then ultimately start reaching out to industry or location specific websites, websites that are publishing articles on a regular basis in your industry. Say, hey, I've written this piece of content. That's one secret. If you can pre-write the article for them and send it to them, you're much more likely to get it published as compared to just saying, hey, can I write an article for you? It takes time. They don't really want to do it. But if you send them an article pre-written, there's a good chance they'll post it and include a link back to your website. And you'll really see benefits from that. So as I mentioned towards the start of this, is this worth doing? I know it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of effort involved, sort of mental learning and sort of how do I apply this to my business? I'm a chiropractor. Right. What services do I provide? What information do I need to provide people to come to a first consultation? Do they know what I do? Right. It is worth doing. And ultimately, it's as simple as getting a piece of paper down, writing down what you need to do and breaking it down. So content, break it down. Key services, what do you provide? What do you get asked on the phone when someone calls you? And then go through the action steps I've provided. At the end of the day, this is well worth the effort. As I mentioned, I've grown countless businesses using this structure. It's really about getting eyes on your website. And SEO really is one of the best, most cost-effective ways to do that. Again, it's down to maths. If 1,000 people are searching for services like yours in your service area per month, and you're showing sort of top 3, top 5, you're going to get about 30% of those clicking through to your website. It's 300 visitors per month. 1 in 4 contacts you. That's still 75 calls per month. That's multiple per day. Again, as I mentioned, 1,000 searches per month is actually quite low. Depending on what your industry is, that could be 10, 20,000 per month when you take into account sort of long keywords as well as the major ones. So as you can see, really the benefit is huge if you put a bit of time and effort into optimizing your presence correctly. So that was a lot to get through in a short period of time. Hopefully you took some of that on board and sort of understood what I'm trying to explain. Hopefully I did a good job of sort of distilling technical details into something that can be understood by any business owner. But if you do have any questions or things you got stuck on or you don't know how to implement, send me an email, martin@growthtitans.com.au. Happy to answer any questions. If you want that list of directory websites for free that I mentioned, they're all free directories as well. Send me an email, I'll send you that list and just go through and register them all for your business. That's really all I have for you. Hopefully I'm going to do a more advanced webinar coming up soon, jumping into some more details. But really go ahead and implement these things. Obviously, if you do need help implementing this or want someone that has experience in growing businesses through SEO, reach out. Happy to chat. But really, now it's just a matter of taking action, implementing the basics for your business and building on that compounding growth. So, in a few months' time, you've got customers calling you that you've never heard of before. They've found you through Google. They've read your reviews. They're ready to buy. And ultimately, you're making more money from effort you've put in today. So hopefully you found that useful. I appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to what I have to say. Really, my goal with this was to transfer that knowledge to you, and hopefully I've done that for you. But if I can help in any way, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a chat, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for coming.